In the year 1902, at the tail end of the Second Boer War, British aristocrat Orlando, the Duke of Oxford, along with his wife Emily and their young son Conrad, find themselves in South Africa. The family is working with the British Red Cross, providing humanitarian aid at a British concentration camp. The experience is supposed to be one of healing and care, but it quickly takes a tragic turn. During their visit, the camp comes under a sniper attack, and in the midst of the chaos, Emily is critically injured by a bullet. As Emily lies dying in Orlando's arms, she makes him promise something that will alter the course of their lives forever. With her final breath, she forces Orlando to promise that he will never allow their son, Conrad, to see the horrors of war. The impact of this promise is profound. Orlando, devastated by the loss of his beloved wife, vows to protect Conrad from the cruelties of the world, shielding him from conflict at all costs. It's a decision that will weigh heavily on Orlando, pushing him toward unexpected paths. Fast forward 12 years. Orlando has built an entirely new life for himself, leaving the traumatic past behind. Raising his son Conrad in this peaceful environment, Orlando shields him from the harsh realities of the world. War is not the answer, he tells Conrad, who, like most young men, doesn't fully appreciate the weight of such words. It's almost like Orlando is trying to put a protective bubble around his son, but Conrad is growing restless. You can only dodge bullets for so long, he might have said if he were the rebellious type. But his impatience grows, and he starts questioning his father's way of thinking. Orlando has established a private spy network, working with his loyal servants, Shola, his butler, and Polly Wilkins, his maid. Together, they are not just household staff. They are employed by some of the most powerful and influential dignitaries in the world. Orlando has created a covert network of informants, using his resources to gather intelligence in the shadows, working behind the scenes to maintain peace and protect the innocent. However, his life is far from peaceful. Conrad, now a young man eager to prove himself, is determined to fight in the war that seems inevitable. But Orlando is resolute. Conrad is forbidden from joining the British Army. He doesn't just tell Conrad to stay home. He goes a step further, pulling strings with his powerful contacts, including Secretary of State for Warlord Kitchener, to ensure Conrad's name never appears on any recruitment list. Orlando's fears for his son's safety are overwhelming, and he does everything in his power to shield him from the harsh realities of war. One day, at Lord Kitchener's request, Orlando and Conrad accompany their old friends, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria and his wife, Sophie, Duchess of Hohenberg, on a ride through Sarajevo. The atmosphere is tense as tensions rise across Europe, with the threat of war looming large. During their ride, an assassin named Gavrilo Princip throws a bomb at the Archduke's car, but Conrad manages to save Franz Ferdinand by pushing him out of the way. However, this moment of heroism is short-lived. Later that day, in a tragic twist of fate, Princip encounters the Archduke's entourage again and fatally shoots both Franz Ferdinand and Sophie, effectively igniting the powder keg that becomes World War I. Soon, Orlando's life is thrown into turmoil when he uncovers a dark conspiracy. A group of powerful elites, including the infamous Rasputin, are secretly pulling the strings of global events. These elites are manipulating world affairs for their own agenda, with the ultimate goal of starting World War. It's like they're playing a gigantic game of chess, and the pieces are the fate of nations. Orlando soon uncovers a deeper conspiracy behind the assassination, realizing that it was no random act of violence. It was orchestrated by a mysterious group known as the Flock. This group has a singular goal: to sow discord between the major empires of Europe, the Germans, the Russians, and the British. As Orlando investigates deeper, he realizes that this group, known as the Shepherd, is using assassination, betrayal, and other sinister means to reshape the world. It's a harsh wake-up call for Orlando, who had hoped that diplomacy and peaceful efforts could keep the world from tipping into chaos. But as he says to Shola, sometimes it's the small things that make the biggest difference. It's a realization that the actions we take, no matter how small, can have massive consequences, like the decision to start a covert mission to stop this global conspiracy. The leader of this shadowy organization is known only as the Shepherd, a man with a vision to reshape the world order. Among the operatives in his network is none other than the infamous Russian mystic Grigory Rasputin, who serves as a trusted advisor to Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. Rasputin's role in this conspiracy becomes even more sinister when he poisons Nicholas's young son, Alexei. The mystic then offers to cure the boy, but only if Nicholas promises to withdraw Russia from the war. This manipulation reveals just how far the Shepherd and his followers are willing to go to achieve their goals. Conrad learns of this nefarious plan through his cousin, Prince Felix Yusupov, who has direct ties to Rasputin. Realizing the magnitude of the situation, Conrad rushes to warn Lord Kitchener and his aide-de-camp, Major Max Morton. Knowing that Russia's withdrawal from the war would leave the Western Front vulnerable, Conrad's warning reaches Kitchener and he sets out to address the situation. However, disaster strikes when the ship carrying Kitchener and Major Morton, the HMS Hampshire, is torpedoed and sunk by a German submarine. Word of Kitchener's death sends shockwaves through Britain, leaving Orlando devastated. With his son still in harm's way, Orlando feels the weight of the promise he made to his wife. He must stop this war from claiming Conrad's life. Determined to end the threat, Orlando, along with Shola, Polly and Conrad sets out for Russia. Their mission is clear. They must kill Rasputin and stop the Shepherd's plans. The journey leads them to a lavish Christmas party hosted by Felix Yusupov, where they confront Rasputin in a brutal battle. Rasputin proves to be as strange and unpredictable as history suggests. In the end, Orlando and his team succeed in killing him, effectively removing one of the Shepherd's most dangerous pawns. However, the conspiracy doesn't end there. The Shepherd, now more desperate than ever to prevent the United States from entering the war, sends Erik Jan Hanusson, an advisor to Kaiser Wilhelm II, to execute a devious plot. Hanusson sends the infamous Zimmermann telegram, urging Mexico to invade the United States. In exchange for support in reclaiming lost territories, the British intelligence intercepts the message, and Polly, using her remarkable skills, deciphers it. However, President Woodrow Wilson refuses to take action, citing a lack of concrete proof. The Shepherd's influence continues to grow, and in a final desperate move, he recruits Vladimir Lenin to lead a revolution in Russia, overthrowing the Tsar and pulling the country out of the war. As a result, the Romanov family is tragically executed. Meanwhile, Conrad is officially commissioned into the Grenadier Guards, despite his father's protests. Orlando's worst fear comes true when King George V personally arranges for Conrad to be stationed in London. But Conrad, determined to contribute to the war effort, swaps places with a Scottish soldier named Archie Reed, taking on his identity and using the codename Lancelot to send his father a message. Disguised as Archie, Conrad volunteers for a perilous mission into no man's land, where he must retrieve vital intelligence from a wounded British agent. Upon returning, tragedy strikes. A fellow soldier, mistaking Conrad for a German spy, shoots him dead. Orlando is left heartbroken, having lost his son in the most brutal way possible.
Polly!
However, the intelligence Conrad gathered proves to be vital. The message he retrieved confirms the authenticity of the Zimmermann telegram. But despite this, Wilson still refuses to enter the war, citing insufficient evidence. Orlando soon discovers that the president has been blackmailed. The Shepherd's agent, Mata Hari, has seduced Wilson, and the Shepherd has obtained incriminating footage. Orlando resolves to retrieve the negatives of this footage. In a dramatic confrontation at the American embassy, Orlando defeats Mata Hari, finding a key clue, a cashmere scarf. Using this clue, Orlando tracks down its origin and uncovers the final pieces of the puzzle. With this new information, Orlando parachutes onto the mountaintop sanctuary of the Shepherd, where he uncovers the true identity of the man behind the conspiracy. It turns out that Major Max Morton, the very man who had faked his death and orchestrated the assassination of Kitchener, is the Shepherd. In a final intense battle, Orlando, with the help of Shola, defeats Morton and kills him. Polly recovers the incriminating film, which is sent to President Wilson. Upon receiving it, Wilson burns the film, and finally, the United States enters the war. After the war ends, Orlando sets up the KingsMan tailor shop as a front for his covert operations. Together with Shola, Polly, King George V, Archie, and the US ambassador to the UK, Orlando forms the original KingsMan. Each member is assigned a code name from the King Arthur legend as a tribute to Conrad's heroic sacrifice. In a mid-credit scene, Eric Jan Hannesson, having taken over the Shepherd's organization, introduces Lenin to the assassin who killed the Romanovs.
Adolf Hitler.
The KingsMan 2021 is a visually stunning and action-packed film that provides a deep dive into the origins of the KingsMan organization. It mixes historical fiction with a dash of over-the-top action, blending the real with the imagined in a way that creates a fresh, exciting prequel to the KingsMan series. The film's emotional depth, particularly the father-son relationship between Orlando and Conrad, adds an element of heart to the action. The film not only explores the origins of the KingsMan, but also highlights the struggles between idealism and the harsh realities of the world, making it an engaging and compelling addition to the KingsMan universe.